So this is the Middlesbrough half marathon, and this video is basically a summary of how I got on during it, and kind of what my goals were and how I got on with those. So for some context around this race, I wasn't really able to run much in December with an injury. Kind of last week of December I got back into training and built up a little bit of an aerobic base on top of what was kind of already left over before my injury. And then I kind of went into a 4-week plan, basically training for this. So this whole race is essentially off kind of a 4-week dedicated plan to it, and now I'm going into marathon training. So that's kind of why I was running this race, just to give me basically a little bit of something before I begin training for the marathon. So my goal for this race was to run a sub 120 half marathon, and I kind of did some videos on my training plan. I did miss out on posting the kind of final week of training, but for the most part my training sessions are all in those previous videos. My current personal best is a 1:18:56, so I kind of wasn't expecting to basically set a new PB, but yeah, my goal was just to go sub 120 and basically test where my fitness actually is. So the Middlesbrough half is a pretty flat course, and my PB was set in Bamberg, which has got a few hills in it and stuff, so yeah, it won't be kind of fully representative of my fitness compared to then, but yeah, it's just a good idea before going into marathon training. So to hit a sub 120 half marathon, you have to be averaging around kind of 3:48ish per kilometre. So my goal was to kind of stay under this from the start and pretty much see how much I could hang on or whether I could speed up throughout. To help me with this, I set my watch up to only alert me every 3 kilometres rather than every kilometre. The reason for this is that, you know, sometimes there's maybe more twists and turns, or you might have just had a bad kilometre for whatever reason, going into a headwind. So if you set it so that it only tells you every 3 kilometres on average of what you're running, it's basically more an accurate picture of are you sticking to your pace or not. So that's why I do that rather than every kilometre, and then you're kind of just overthinking each individual kilometre. So for example, if I got a split and it told me that I'd ran 3:49 in that 3 kilometre split, it would mean that I've lost 3 seconds of my time, whereas if you're kind of going by individual kilometres and you maybe get a 3:52 on one, you're kind of then thinking, okay, I need to run a 3:43 on my next kilometre, and it might just mess up your whole race. So kind of spreading your alerts out over a distance basically just helps you to not have to focus on this too much and just lets you kind of naturally progress with your race. There was one final factor that made me really unsure of how I was going to get on this race. So a few days before, I'd been basically having a bad throat every night. It was keeping me up at night and stuff. Went to the doctor and found out it was tonsillitis, so I kind of wasn't sure pretty much how much energy I was going to have for this race, whether I'd fade towards the end and that. So I did do one thing a little bit differently than what I usually do, and I had a Red Bull in the car on the way down to Middlesbrough. That's something I don't usually do, but yeah, I imagine it probably did help a bit with the energy. But other than that, I kind of did everything as I'd usually do. I woke up a few hours before, had my breakfast. It was a lighter breakfast because it's a half marathon, not a full marathon. So for a full marathon, I'd usually kind of have rice or pasta. For this, I just had peanut butter and toast. Yeah, other than that, my preparation is pretty much the same as usual. So at this point we're a couple of kilometres in, and people have basically kind of spread out, I suppose, into whatever kind of paces that they're running. A lot of people kind of gun it at the start, but yeah, at this point I pretty much have been consistent from the start, but you saw some people kind of go ahead of me at the start, and they soon fell back, or there was other people that just kept going and broke away. So I found myself sort of settled in with this little group that all seemed to be running together, so the Teesside Running Club, and they were pretty much seeming to run fairly much the exact same target as I was. They always kind of maintained a little bit ahead of me, but I was kind of happy with that. It kind of matched my pace perfectly for what I was looking to do, so for the most part I stuck in behind these lads. So as time went on, it kind of spaced out a bit, but yeah, you can kind of see that these are all sort of running together. They're, you know, having chats and stuff the whole way through, so they seem pretty comfortable, whereas I was kind of going at the exact kind of effort that I was looking for, so yeah, it seemed ideal to me to stick with them. So you saw earlier in the clip, we passed the 3 mile sign, so we're kind of around 5 kilometres in here at this point. My first 3 kilometre split I ran in 3:46, to give me about a 2-second buffer per kilometre to the sub 120 goal time, so that's kind of perfect. I'm not sort of pushing myself too hard, but at the same time yeah, I am building that buffer, and I wasn't obviously struggling at all. It's quite early days. I wasn't sure, obviously, with the tonsillitis, would I, be struggling earlier on, or would it kind of come later in the race? So at this point, I was starting to think, yeah, maybe even if it was just an energy drink or whatever, I was feeling better than I maybe thought I would be at this point. So that was pretty good. So going past that first water station, I didn't take any water. I kind of planned to maybe take it a bit later on, but yeah, early in the race I don't like to take on too much water. I end up maybe getting stitches and stuff. It's something that I probably need to train a bit better at. You can also see those lads in that running group ahead. They're all kind of sharing the water and helping each other out, so that's always good. Anytime I was close enough and near a water station, they did check if I needed any water in, so that's always good to see as well. But yeah, so we're plugging away here, going through some estates, but you can see that a lot of this course is pretty much straight lines and stuff. There was kind of switchbacks later on, but for the most part straight lines, so a pretty good course overall, especially considering the flatness. If you're enjoying the video, please give the video a like, and maybe subscribe to the channel. You'll see my training videos for events like this, and for marathons and stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you're enjoying. So this clip that you're watching is actually from around 9-ish kilometers into the race, but just the way that I've recorded the videos, a lot of them are kind of later into the race, and I don't have much from the early sections. So the bit I'm going to be talking about is my second 3-kilometer split, so from kilometers 4 to 6. So my average for this was 3:45 per kilometer, so I've banked about 9 more seconds there, on top of the 6 from earlier on, to get a sub 1:20 half marathon. So looking well, and I've obviously progressed my speed a little bit, by 1 second per kilometer in this segment, so still feeling pretty good. You can see I'm still sticking in with these lads, and they're pretty much running the exact paces. I think sometimes it was dropping down to 3:40, and then for example this bit, it's only a really small hill, but you're naturally gonna slow down a bit here, so maybe to like 3:48 or whatever. But yeah, so sticking with these lads and doing quite well. It was also a bit entertaining to see. They obviously knew a lot of people. You can see they're the Teesside running clubs that are pretty local, so yeah, they knew a lot of people out and about, so it was quite good to see, the support and stuff that they had there. So we're just coming up towards the football stadium now, the Middlesbrough Riverside Stadium, and you can probably hear in these clips, when I put the volume up, that my breathing is getting a little bit heavier here, and probably a bit heavier than I wanted it to be. This is, I think, in and around maybe 10.5-ish kilometers in, so kind of only coming up to the halfway point, so probably don't want to be struggling too much at this point. But yeah, like I say, I'm kind of 4 weeks into an actual training plan for this, so I'm still basically adjusting the body back to doing speed work, so I kind of wasn't too surprised. I pretty much was waiting for the point where things would start to get harder, and then it becomes a bit more of a mind game. So yeah, at this point though, I was basically like, there's a stadium, I'll just focus on that for the next kilometre or so, and that'll kind of get me through it. So at this point in the clips, we're kind of coming up to, I think it was around 11ish kilometers, and you can see I'm heading towards the out and back, and you can see the people are a bit further ahead in the race. They're already on their way back there, so they're going fairly fast. Fair play to them. But for my 3 kilometer split between kilometers 7 and 9, I averaged 3:43. So this was just over. It was like an 11 minute and 8 second segment. But yeah, you'll see here this fella slipped, and that's really why I don't really like these kind of switchbacks. I prefer where it's an actual turn or something like that. Yeah, it's just a risk. There's little stones on the ground and stuff. But that's kind of the main complaint I'd have about this course, was just that one part. But yeah, for my 3 kilometer split, I was quite happy with it. I'd gained another 5 seconds per kilometer, so that's an extra 15 seconds, which is basically doubled my gap between my safety gap that I had between a sub 120 half marathon. So if I did need to slow down later, I could, and actually that was good to know at this time, because I was starting to feel it. There was a bit more wind in this section, so yeah, it was starting to become a bit more of a struggle. But you can see that the pace are pretty good. There's a lot of downhills there, so that probably helped. But yeah, all going good. Yeah, so I've never been to Middlesbrough before, but I thought that was a bit of a mad thing. When I saw the horse, I said I better start recording. Yeah, just a couple of horses there beside the road. But yeah, we're a little bit further on now, coming on I think to around kilometers 13 or 14ish at this point. And again, we're back on the flats, basically long straight roads, no cars to be seen anywhere. I think the roads were for the most part closed. There was a couple that were open, but yeah, these are all closed anyway. This next 3 kilometer split between up to 12 kilometers was an average of 3:44 per kilometer. So again, I'm banking plenty of seconds every time, and it is getting a bit tougher. I did have moments where I was like, should I slow it down now? But I basically negotiated with myself and said, get to 15 kilometers, and when you get to 15 you can judge from there. You basically don't want to pack it in too early. I was kind of aware that the difficulties were kind of coming in my lungs rather than my legs, which meant that it's probably a fitness thing, rather than that my legs couldn't hold the pace. So yeah, it was pretty much just a mental game at this point to, for as long as I could, stick with the pace that I was doing, and yeah, basically see how long I could hold on to them. So I've said to myself around 15 kilometers, and I'll basically revisit it. And the reason I do that is because I then know that I'm a bit closer to the finish, and I could say to myself, oh, it's 7 kilometers to go. So that's kind of why I did that. At this stage I did have about a 42-second gap to safety of that sub 120, and so I knew that the later I could leave it before I potentially need to slow down, basically the better the margin I had, and if I had to slow down by a lot for whatever reason, it'd give me more of a chance if it was only over the course of 1 kilometre or so. So the later I could leave it, the better. So as you can hear from that sound I made at the start of this clip, it was really getting tough at this stage. You obviously can hear in these clips now the wind is basically coming right against us, and it's a lot basically stronger than it had been previously. Especially you can see that Teesside Running Club lads, they're way out in front of me ahead at this point, so I'm basically taking on that full force of the wind to myself, with kind of no, I suppose, blockers in front. So yeah, getting a lot tougher at this stage. And coming up to the 15k mark, I did average at 3:45 per kilometre for this split, so I'm still banking seconds. But yeah, it's basically just getting constantly tougher the whole time. And when I did get to 15 kilometres, I then sort of renegotiated myself and said, okay, now we get to 19 kilometres, you've just done an extra 4 on what you thought you could do another 4, and then you'll only have 2 left, and I can see what basically gap I have to then, and I can slow down if I need to. So it's just kind of all mind games that you have to play with yourself when it's getting tough like this. So that's what I did. But yeah, so far I was just banking seconds every single split, so it's doing quite well. But I knew it was only going to get tougher and tougher from now on.
Get it, everybody.
Fair play to this guy in front as well. He kept having to stop with like pins and needles in his hand or something like that, and every time he'd stop and I go past him, then a few seconds later he's flying past me again. Don't know how he was able to stop and keep going that fast, but yeah, fair play to him. So we're nearly at the end here. I can see all these people that still have to go through what I've just gone through. They're only out on the way, but yeah, at this point I'd only a few kilometres left. But yeah, I was really struggling. Heart rate was in the 190s now for longer than I would have liked it to have been. Don't really want to ever see it in the 190s during a race, but yeah, it was particularly hard, and obviously my fitness isn't where it used to be. But for this split, average 3:52. So this is the first time I was losing time, and I was losing 4 seconds each kilometre. So I've lost 12 of those seconds that I've banked. So it kind of meant that I think I had less than a minute to spare over the course of the last 3 kilometres. But unless I slowed down to like a 4:10 pace, it meant that I should be okay. But it was really tough, especially here. You turn that corner and a blast of wind hit you, and then when you turn the next corner, another blast of wind hit you. And at this point, it was really difficult. I did again consider nearly just coming to a total stop. I felt like I was going to get sick if I kept pushing, but yeah, for whatever reason I just kept going, and it just went away after a few seconds. So I got a bit lucky that I didn't have to get sick at this point. So that previous clip that I showed, where I was mentioning the wind, my pace dropped to a 3:50 for that, so I was quite surprised that was actually still that fast. But obviously there had been other bits of that kilometre beforehand, which would have contributed to that still being faster. So I basically knew at this point it was pretty much in the bag, and I was basically, this guy was in front of me, and I just set myself this target on this last straight to try catch him, or get as close to him as I could. But yeah, overall for this run, my chip time was 1:19:24, so I was really happy with that. I really had doubts about my fitness going into it, even without the tonsillitis beforehand. So I really wasn't sure would I even get sub 120. I was even debating putting that on the YouTube videos. to name that as a target, but yeah, it's good to have the target in your head and make it ambitious. If it's an easy target, you're going to hit it. It's not a challenge. So you can see that I've got the extra energy. I'm giving these kids high fives and stuff, and drifting over to the side to do it. But yeah, 119.24. I was really happy with it, and yeah, thought it was a really good event. I'd probably do it again in the future, and I'll let you just watch out the finish. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.
Middlesbrough, I want you to tell me when we see our first female athlete coming into the finish. Those of you on the finishing straight, when we see our first Middlesbrough, I want you to tell me when we see our first female athlete coming into the finish. Those of you on the finishing straight, when we see our female, she's over a million miles away. She's over a million miles away.